So it's the holiday season, Halloween, pumpkins, Thanksgiving. So how about if we make pumpkin maple walnut? You better say yes, this is what I got. How about if we make pumpkin maple walnut? My kind of crowd. So pumpkin maple walnut. You can write the recipe down as we go along, but it's really not that important. Mix. We have mix here?
Yes, sir.
The mix comes in bladders, as you know, 2.5 gallons per bladder, 10 quarts. And in a 24-quart machine, all of my recipes are geared towards one bag of mix, 10 quarts, 2.5 gallons. And I put 10 quarts in, 2.5 gallons in, and I get 6 or 7 gallons out on a batch. So the ingredients for today will be the mix. Actually, I'll tell you what, why don't you start smart and just put down on the left-hand side M dash, under that P dash, under that MS dash, under that WAL dash, and under that BS dash, and under that, don't worry about under that. So what's the first one? M, right? What is that? Mix, of course, which is a terrible name, as we always agree to. What am I using? 5 quarts? Half batch? Yeah. So because this is a 12 quart, not a 24, so we'll use a half batch. So my card says 10, but we're going to use 5. Okay? Right. That's what we used yesterday, 24, this is 12. So we'll use 5 quarts. And that's pretty good. So that's the mix. Pumpkin. Now I tried pumpkin pie filling, but I didn't like it. It wasn't good. So I buy pure pumpkin, 100% pure pumpkin. This is what they call a number 10 can, which is a big can. This is what I use in a full recipe, so today we'll use half. Now let's see, how am I going to do this? Let's get another container. So we want half of this. In case you're weight conscious, this is 6 pounds, 10 ounces. So we'll use about half of that. Can we use too much? No. Now, maple syrup. Luckily, I have in my classes, somebody took a class whose family owns the largest tree farm in Vermont. And then a couple of months ago, I get a delivery at the store, and it's a 5-gallon drum of pure Vermont maple syrup. That's some money there. You know, in the store, a pint is about $11. So he sent me this great thing, so I figured out, let's use it. This is pure maple syrup, 1 quart, about a quart. So we'll use that too. This is fun. It's like playing house. Walnuts. Walnuts. I use these walnuts in maple flavored sauce. I don't like that maple flavored sauce, so I usually drain it. But the walnuts are good. My mic working? We'll use those. We'll use half of that. Now, today when I got here, I realized I forgot one of the ingredients. I forgot brown sugar. I need a half a pound of brown sugar. So what can we do?
Regular sugar?
Well, sugar? Ah, who said it? Yeah. So I took a half a pound of regular sugar and I mixed it with some molasses. And that'll give us brown sugar. Genius. Genius. So we'll add that in. And that should be pretty close to brown sugar, right? You know less than I do. It's brown, right. It's brown. And that's half the battle. We got the color right. Okay, brown sugar. So what do we have in here? We have pumpkin, maple syrup, and brown sugar, right? How much brown sugar? Half a pound. No problem, Tina. Now what? Now mix it up. As we discussed in class, it's like making soup. If you have 5 ingredients to make soup with, and one of them is no good, you cheap out on one of them, soup's going to suffer. So when you're making your stuff, put the, ooh, look how good that looks. That looks pretty good. You getting that, Jack?
Yes, sir.
All right. Feel like Oz.
Whole walnuts in there, the halves or pieces?
They look like whole walnuts. Doesn't say. Premium walnuts, so we're okay. What else? Oh, and then I discovered in making this that I need, Steve's right, I like to pump it up a little bit. What does Emery say? Kick it up a notch? Right. I like to kick it up a notch. So I discovered that a little, you know, Tyranny, we have a coffee bar in my cappuccinos. All done? Okay. So I felt that it needed a little, you know, pumpkin isn't really strong. So I tried to think of something that complemented pumpkin, and I found caramel that we put in our coffees at the store. So I add a little caramel to it, just a little. And now we have something. So we'll throw this in the machine as soon as we get something to catch it when it... These are finger tight. And we'll put this in. Aha. Good thing I put that there, huh? And this and the walnuts, right? Can we put too many walnuts in? Yeah. No, you can't put too many walnuts in. It calls for half of this, and I don't have a strainer to get the juice out, so we'll have to do that by hand once it's rolling. Okay? These machines are, I don't sell for him, but you can throw anything in here. They're really bulletproof. Okay, we have everything. We have the mix. We have the pumpkin, the maple syrup, the walnuts, the brown sugar, and the caramel. We're good to go, right?
I have a question. I've noticed making pumpkin pies from scratch that you use a lot of like nutmeg. A lot of the recipes I've seen online have cinnamon added. Have you tried it with those or just with what you have here?
Pretty good. Come home with me. We'll experiment. I don't know. I'm not a baker, so perhaps those would help. Glad you brought it up, my deficiencies. I'm glad you pointed it out to everybody. Okay, so we haven't put the refrigeration on. All we're doing is adding our ingredients, minus nutmeg and all that stuff. I think the problem with what was the other one, nutmeg and what? Cinnamon. I think the problem is when you're baking a pie, you're using like a half a teaspoon and that amount in your ice cream, you would adjust it, of course, but you're still not going to use a lot of it.
Well, the reason I asked is
That's enough. What?
the pumpkin itself
Right?
doesn't have a huge amount of
No,
flavor.
no.
So when you have the cinnamon and nutmeg and allspice, it gives you that extra really bite.
Okay, remember the flavor here is pumpkin maple walnut. When I make pumpkin pie ice cream, of course I add nutmeg and cinnamon. What kind of guy you think I am? Walnuts. What? Define pulverized. Well, it will chop some of them and you'll get pieces. Let's take this. Suppose you put one whole Oreo cookie in the machine. So it won't be nothing. It'll be very small pieces of Oreo. Nuts a little harder than Oreos, so you'll see when it comes out. Oh, you'll see when it comes out. Just relax. You'll see when it comes out. And that's it. What else do we have to do? Thanks. Timer? Okay. Where's this timer? No. Where's your timer?
Batteries are dead.
Batteries are dead. Where's your batteries? You have another timer that's not so masculine?
You don't need some stinking timer.
We don't need no stinking timer.
That will be an approximation within 10 minutes.
See, this counts down. I count up on mine because I know that this is not reliable. So, not that the timer's not reliable, but the time is not reliable. So, even though this counts down, I don't know how to use it.
I set it for 8 minutes. When the timer goes off, I go back and check the product.
Well, I just watch it.
Okay, that
So,
works.
you conveniently left the room while I was creating this.
Yes, I do.
Is it that you don't care?
No, I don't have to suffer the slings and arrows if I'm not here.
Ah, okay. You let me do that.
Yes. Any questions? Jeff, the setting he's running on is homemade, which
234.
is maximum speed. Yeah, the
Full
numbers
speed ahead.
don't mean anything because you can take another machine, and if you could, which you can't, turn it to 234, it won't correlate. It's not a number that goes any further than what's used on an Emery Thompson machine. So what counts, though, is the product that you're making. This is an invention of mine 13 years ago. And what's unique about it is, people would say, well, gee, big deal. You slow down the machine, or let me put it another way. If I put heavy cream in here and stir it with a whisk, it's going to remain heavy cream because I can't stir fast enough. If I take an electric mixer and put it in here, it'll turn into whipped cream. So homemade ice cream, by terminology, is 1 gallon in, 2 gallons out. That's the maximum amount of air. So I run at full speed, And the Emery Thompsons are the only ones that make homemade. Everybody else is making gelato. They can't make homemade. So I took it a step further and said, well, besides my homemade, I want to able to make lower, more dense products. So how do you do it? You slow down the machine. If I turn it like this instead of like this, I'll put less air into it. But here's where the trick comes in, why it's an invention instead of just an add-on. You're in your dining room, you've got the lights, 100-watt light bulbs, and you dim them down to a romantic 25 watts for dinner. You're literally stealing the power from the light bulb. It's no longer a 100-watt light bulb, it's a 25-watt light bulb. If you take a motor in a machine and dim it down with a rheostat, it's no longer a 6 horsepower motor, it's a 1 horsepower motor. And so it doesn't have the strength to pull through a product that needs a 6 horsepower motor. With my invention, the Infinite Overrun, which again is 13 years old now, no matter what speed I run at, I am getting the full power out of the motor, what they call torque. When you step on the gas and go screaming down the street, that's torque. If you just go piddling down the street, that's called a Yugo. And we're building the machines that can do high torque. Does that make sense?
There was the old days, like say 50 years ago when they were making gelato when they didn't have this.
50 years ago, we weren't making gelato. Emery Thompson wasn't doing it. There wasn't any market for it in the United States. The Italian machines, which are based on our patents as far as design, freezing cylinder, chamber, how you cool it, all batch freezers are based on my grandfather's patents. But what they did is they originally started at 1 speed and 1 dasher design that will only do a 50% air content at best. It won't do higher. They'll try to sell you a second dasher for $4,000. Switch out 1 dasher and put in another. So now the machine is, instead of being $32,000, now it's $37,000 for what we sell at a fraction of that. We're not changing dashers, we're changing the actual configuration of how the machine runs. And 13 years, it's the largest selling brand in the world. It certainly works. And it gives you so much versatility. We've even stopped making the 1-speed machines on these bigger models. We don't even offer it anymore because they just weren't selling. Everybody wanted the Infinite Overrun control. So it's pretty great. Yes?
Is the refrigeration temperature constant on the machine?
The refrigeration temperature, it's kind of a odd question because no, it's not like putting an ice cube tray, and by the way, the millennials don't know what an ice cube tray is. You're putting an ice cube tray into your freezer. Freezer's set at 0. It's eventually going to freeze the ice cubes. What's happening here is we are getting colder and colder and colder and colder into where if you left it alone, it would just shut down because it's just so cold in there. So no, the cold temperature is dropping. It used to be Taylor that wouldn't tell you what size compressor they had. They're out of business. They're the world's largest manufacturer of soft ice cream machines. We drove them out of the batch freezer business 3 years ago. There's a 3 horsepower motor in there. You can relate to. It's a 3 horse as opposed to a quarter of a horse, half a horse. It tells you something. What everybody else was doing is dishonest. They say they rate it by BTUs, British thermal units. We all know that a 6,000 BTU is a good size room air conditioner for your master bedroom. You know, it's just in our minds. 6,000 is great. 12,000 is outrageous. We can put that in the living room. So they rated their compressors and their machines by BTUs. Well, this thing is about, I don't know, 18,000 BTU when you first start it. But as the product gets colder, your BTU level drops because the product's getting colder. There's less British thermal units to take out of the product. So so rating a machine by BTU is a dishonest rating. The dasher is scraping the product off. In fact, no, all the time until it stops because you ignored it, until the product's ready. But we used to have blades for, oh gosh, 110 years. The blades look like this. They were metal, and they were thrown against the walls by, that's heavy, thrown against the walls by centrifugal force. So you couldn't do low-speed products because there wouldn't be enough centrifugal force to throw it against the walls as it goes around. We redesigned it with spring-loaded blades so that no matter what speed, I could run it at 1 RPM, and it's going to scrape just like it would at 234 because of the springs. These have a life to them, and as they age, your freezing time gets longer, and you have to get them resharpened. These, whether this blade is 1 day old or 5.5 years old, because of the springs, it's still scraping at the same efficiency. So you've got something, you know, like a lithium battery. They work absolutely great, and then they stop. Well, these don't stop, but they work 100% all the time, and they cost less than these. So it's really been a dramatic change. You're not ready?
Ignore the man behind the curtain.
Okay. These also make great barbells. You know, you can be lifting them like
I
this.
see you strapped that one after I broke my toe.
Him with his toe. Yes.
What was the question?
No, the question is the colder you get, the faster you can make product. No, there's a law of diminishing returns. I mean, I could blast it with, I could add nitrogen into the product and it would be frozen in a couple of minutes, but it wouldn't be the product you want. It would be very grainy and awful. Liquid nitrogen's a bad way to make ice cream. Quite simply because Americans, it's not the reason that you would think. Americans don't like to wait. And if you watch any of the videos on liquid nitrogen or the new old-fashioned pan, you know, the Thai pan where they put it on, they're always working around, it takes about 7 minutes to make a batch, to make a serving. All right, so we got 10 people in line. 10 people, 7 minutes. That's 70 minutes. I'm not waiting an hour and 10 minutes for you to serve me. I've gone down the street to somewhere else. Americans will not wait. It's a novelty. Maybe I'll do it once, but these people running in businesses like that, they're not in business 2 years later. They're for sale because it's not, people want it now. I mean, imagine going to McDonald's and they say, okay, your hamburger will be ready in 70 minutes. Are you going to wait? No. Anybody else?
Anybody else?
Oh, lots. Okay, here.
What do you said you, on your machine, you're for full bag, and you're adding all this other active material. When do you get worried that you're going to overflow? Is there a point where you think this is too much to put in?
The question is, can you put too much into the cylinder? Actually, these cylinders are much larger capacity than what we tell you.
Right. I have a 24-quart machine, which is how many gallons? 6 gallons. So some of my recipes, I get 7 gallons out of a 6-gallon machine. How does that work? How does that work, Steve?
It works because there's more room in there. However, when you're doing that, you're increasing the freezing time.
Correct.
Is there? I need a bucket. No, not with
if you put too much in, it won't fit.
Yeah, but not with the not with the motors we use and the compressors. You can't hurt them.
No.
We also rate our machines differently than anybody else. We rate it by an honest answer. This makes 12 quarts. The next one makes 24 quarts. This one makes 6 quarts. This makes 3 quarts. That makes a quart and a half. These are all finished capacity. Everybody else's machine, when you read say Cappigiani has a 21-quart machine, here's what they do. They take the cylinder that's in there and they turn it on end so it's up like that. They take out the dasher so it's an empty cylinder, and then they fill it with water. And they say, hey, guess what? That holds 21 quarts. It's a 21-quart machine, and they're trying to compare that to my 24-quart machine, which if I did their trick, this would be about 34 quarts. But that's not honest. It's never going to get 34 quarts out of it. It's rated, I want stuff in under 10 minutes, 8 minutes. So it's rated by how much can I get out. So that's a 24-quart machine, but if I did it by everybody else's method, it'd be about 34, 35 quarts. It's dishonest
I
because you
found-
can't compare apples to apples.
I just found that a 10-quart bag works perfectly in my machine. So I know when I'm here, it's a 5-quart. And then my ingredients.
Also, all your recipes that you're ever going to see are based on our machines because we've been over here 112 years. You're going to find that the bags of mix used to come in 10-gallon pails, and you'd ladle out, what you needed. Well, now it comes in 2.5-gallon bags, not liters, but bags, because Emery Thompson is based on 2.5, 5, and 10. So they followed us. You don't want to be putting in one bag and then putting in a quart of another bag, because now you don't remember, did I take a quart out of that bag? It gets too confusing. It's simpler just to run a full bag and know how much ingredients will go in every time.
Right. Makes all your recipes simple.
Yeah. You're done?
Almost ready.
I'll get out of the way.
It's not going to splatter out. Pumpkin, maple, walnut. Minus the nutmeg and cinnamon, of course. Ah.
He'll do another one. That thing shoots
Okay,
video,
we can
too.
try some.
I haven't figured out how to do it.
Uh-huh.
Very smooth.
Just have a little.
Throw the old plate away
Yes, sir.
and zip it.
Thank you.
Hey, Jeff,